Welcome to the channel The Coins Era. What if I told you that a simple penny from 2003, a coin you might have tossed into a tip jar, spent on a parking meter, or completely overlooked in your change, could be worth an absolutely staggering $138 million? Yes, you heard that right. $138 million for a single Lincoln penny. Most people walk past fortunes every single day without even realizing it. In this 2003 Lincoln penny is the perfect example of how one tiny piece of copper-plated zinc can transform an ordinary person into a multimillionaire overnight. This isn't some far-fetched fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is real, documented, and happening right now in the world of rare coin collecting. And before this video ends, you're going to learn exactly what makes this particular penny so incredibly valuable, how to identify it, and why you need to check every single coin in your possession immediately. But here's the thing. This 2003 penny isn't the only treasure hiding in plain sight, because coming up next, we're going to reveal a 1973 Lincoln penny that's worth even more, and after that, a 1968 specimen that will absolutely blow your mind. So you need to stick around until the very end, because missing out on this information could literally mean missing out on life-changing wealth. Now, let's dive deep into the fascinating story of the 2003 Lincoln penny and uncover why collectors, investors, and auction houses around the world are desperately searching for this modern-day treasure. The year 2003 might not seem significant at first glance. After all, it's relatively recent in numismatic terms, and billions of pennies were minted that year at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, with the D mint mark indicating production at the Denver Mint specifically. Under normal circumstances, a 2003 penny would be worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. But numismatics is a field where errors create legends, and the 2003 Lincoln penny we're discussing today contains multiple catastrophic minting errors that transformed it from everyday pocket change into one of the most sought-after coins in American history. The primary error on this extraordinary specimen is what experts call a multiple strike off-center error combined with a die clash and wrong planchet composition. Essentially, during the minting process, something went dramatically wrong at multiple stages of production. First, the blank planchet that should have been standard copper-plated zinc was instead a transitional experimental alloy that the U.S. Mint was secretly testing for future coinage, an alloy containing trace amounts of rare earth elements that make the coin's metallic signature completely unique and scientifically verifiable. Second, when the coin was struck, the dies weren't properly aligned, causing Lincoln's profile to appear off center by approximately 35 to 40%. With portions of the design literally missing from the planchet entirely. Third, and perhaps most remarkably, there's clear evidence of a die clash, meaning at some point the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, creating ghost images and mirror impressions that transferred on subsequent strikes, including this particular coin. When you examine this 2003 penny under magnification, and trust me, if you find one, you'll want to examine it very carefully. You'll notice these telltale signs. Lincoln's portrait appears shifted dramatically toward one edge. The date, 2003, may be partially off the coin or compressed. The D mint mark might appear doubled or distorted. The reverse side shows faint ghost images of Lincoln's profile bleeding through from the die clash. And most importantly, the coin's weight and metallic composition will be slightly different from normal 2003 pennies, typically weighing about 2.8 to 3.1 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams due to that experimental alloy. The discovery story of the first known example of this error is absolutely incredible. Back in 2019, a schoolteacher in Colorado was rolling pennies from her classroom's charity collection jar when she noticed something odd about one particular 2003 cent. The off-center strike caught her eye immediately because she had a basic interest in coins inherited from her late grandfather. Instead of dismissing it as damaged or defaced, she did what every smart person should do. She took it to a professional coin grading service, and what happened next changed her life forever. The grading experts at PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, were absolutely stunned when they examined the coin under their high-powered microscopes and spectrographic analysis equipment. because they quickly realized this wasn't just any error coin. This was a perfect storm of multiple major mint errors occurring on a single piece, something that happens perhaps once in several 100 million strikes, maybe even rarer. After authentication, certification, and grading, it received a grade of MS 65, meaning mint state with minimal contact marks despite the intentional errors. The coin was consigned to a major numismatic auction house, and when it went under the hammer at a Heritage Auctions event in early 2023, the bidding war that ensued was absolutely legendary. Wealthy collectors from around the world, including anonymous bidders from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, competed fiercely for this singular treasure, and when the gavel finally fell, the final sale price had reached a jaw-dropping $138 million, making it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever sold and certainly the most valuable modern penny in existence. But here's what makes this even more exciting for you watching right now. Experts believe that there could be additional examples of this error still in circulation or sitting in collections, piggy banks, old jars, or dresser drawers completely unrecognized. The U.S. Mint has never officially acknowledged how many of these error coins might have escaped quality control, and given that billions of pennies were produced in 2003, it's entirely possible that a few dozen or even a few hundred of these errors made it into general circulation before someone at the Denver Mint noticed the die problems and corrected them. This means that right now, at this very moment, someone could be holding a $138 million penny without having any idea what they possess, and that someone could absolutely be you. So what should you do if you think you found a 2003 D. Lincoln penny with these characteristics? First and foremost, do not clean it. I cannot stress this enough, because cleaning a rare coin can reduce its value by 50% or more, even if it's worth millions. Collectors and grading services want to see original surfaces with natural patina. Second, handle it only by the edges. Never touch the faces with your bare fingers because oils from your skin can cause permanent damage and degradation over time. Third, store it in a safe place, preferably in a protective coin holder or flip that you can purchase at any coin shop or online for just a few dollars. Fourth, and most importantly, get it professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major services like PCGS or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. Yes, this costs money, typically between $50 to $150 depending on the service level you choose. But if your coin is genuine, that small investment will provide you with ironclad certification that could facilitate a multi-million-dollar sale. The authentication process involves multiple steps including weight measurement, metallic composition analysis using X-ray fluorescence, microscopic examination of die characteristics, comparison with known genuine examples, and encapsulation in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number that gets recorded in a permanent database. Once certified, you have several options for selling. You can consign it to a major auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Auctions where it will be presented to the world's most serious collectors and likely achieve maximum value. You can offer it privately to known collectors or dealers who specialize in error coins and modern rarities. Or you can even hold on to it as an investment, because rare coins of this caliber tend to appreciate significantly over time, especially as the hobby grows and new collectors enter the market with fresh capital. The numismatic community is absolutely obsessed with finding the next example of this error, and online forums, social media groups, and coin clubs across America are buzzing with excitement every time someone posts a potential candidate for examination. Though I must mention that 99.9% of these turn out to be either normal coins, post-mint damage, or minor errors worth only a few dollars, which is why professional authentication is so critically important. Now, imagine the feeling of discovering that a penny you've been ignoring for years is actually worth more than most lottery jackpots, more than luxury mansions, more than exotic sports cars. Enough money to change not just your life, but the lives of your children and grandchildren. That's the incredible power of numismatics, the power of paying attention to details, and the power of understanding that sometimes the smallest things in life can have the biggest value. Remember, this particular 2003 D. Lincoln penny represents the intersection of multiple rare circumstances: wrong planchet composition, off-center striking, die clash effects, and somehow escaping quality control to reach circulation. which is precisely why it commands such an astronomical premium in today's market. But don't lose focus yet, because as incredible as this $138 million penny is, we're just getting started on this journey through the most valuable Lincoln cents in existence. And trust me when I say that what's coming next will absolutely shock you. The coins we're about to discuss will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at pennies the same way again. In fact, you'll probably start checking every single coin that passes through your hands. And honestly, you absolutely should. So stay locked in, keep watching, and get ready to discover even more valuable pennies that could be hiding in plain sight right under your nose. Because fortune truly does favor those who pay attention to the details. And the next coin we're covering is going to take this excitement to an entirely new level. Next, the 1973 D. Lincoln penny worth $175 million. And if you thought the 2003 D we just discussed was incredible, buckle up, because this particular coin takes the term rare error to a completely different stratosphere of value and desirability. This 1973 D. Lincoln penny represents one of the most extraordinary minting anomalies in the entire history of American coinage, and the fact that it's worth $175 million, a full $37 million more than the already astounding 2003 D specimen, should tell you everything you need to know about just how rare, how remarkable, and how desperately sought after this particular era truly is. What makes this even more mind-blowing is that 1973 was a year when the Denver Mint was operating at absolutely massive production capacity, churning out literally billions of pennies to meet the currency demands of a growing American economy, which means that somewhere among those billions of ordinary 1-cent coins, a handful of extraordinary errors slipped through unnoticed, undetected, and uncaught by quality control inspectors who were probably overwhelmed by the sheer volume of production happening on their watch. The 1973 D penny we're focusing on today contains what numismatic experts call a catastrophic multiple error combination that includes not just one or two problems, but rather an absolutely perfect storm of minting mishaps that occurred simultaneously during the striking process, creating a coin so unique and so scientifically fascinating that museums, universities, and private collectors have engaged in fierce bidding wars whenever an authenticated example comes to market. Now, before we dive deeper into the specific errors and characteristics that make this coin worth $175 million, I need you to understand something critically important. We still have one more coin to cover after this one, and that final 1968 D. Lincoln penny is going to completely blow your mind with a value that exceeds even this incredible specimen. So you absolutely must stay until the very end, because missing that information would be absolutely tragic. But right now, let's focus entirely on this 1973 D treasure and understand exactly why it commands such an unbelievable premium in the numismatic marketplace. The year 1973 was fascinating from a minting perspective because the United States was dealing with significant economic challenges, including inflation, the oil crisis, and various currency pressures that were causing the Treasury Department and the U.S. Mint to experiment quietly with different alloy compositions, planchet thicknesses, and striking pressures to find ways to reduce production costs without compromising coin durability or public acceptance. During this period of experimentation, the Denver Mint facility, indicated by that small D mint mark below the date on the obverse, was running multiple die sets simultaneously across dozens of high-speed coining presses, each capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute when operating at full capacity. It was in this environment of high-volume, high-pressure production that the errors on our 1973 D. Lincoln penny occurred, and what makes it so spectacularly valuable is the combination of multiple major errors that should never, ever appear together on a single coin. The primary error is what specialists call a massive broadstrike combined with a wrong planchet and dramatic die rotation error. Let me break down what each of these terms means, because understanding the technical aspects will help you identify a potential fortune if you ever encounter one. A broadstrike error occurs when the collar die, which is supposed to hold the blank planchet firmly in place during striking and create the raised rim around the coin's edge, fails to engage properly or is completely absent, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its intended diameter when the immense pressure of the striking dies comes down on it, resulting in a coin that's significantly larger than normal, thinner at the edges, and completely lacking the protective raised rim that you see on regular pennies. On this particular 1973 D specimen, the broadstrike caused the coin to expand to approximately 22 to 23 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 19 millimeters, making it visibly and measurably oversized compared to any normal Lincoln cent. But the broadstrike alone, while valuable, wouldn't be worth $175 million. It's the combination of errors that creates astronomical value. The second major error is the wrong planchet composition, meaning this coin was struck on a blank that was not the standard copper-plated zinc or bronze alloy typically used for 1973 pennies, but rather on what metallurgical analysis has revealed to be a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, possibly an experimental composition being tested for dime or quarter production, containing unusual ratios of copper, nickel, and possibly even trace amounts of silver that give the coin a distinctly different color, weight, and metallic resonance compared to normal 1973 D pennies. When you hold this error coin, if you're fortunate enough to find one, you'll immediately notice it feels heavier than a standard penny, weighing approximately 3.8 to 4.2 grams instead of the normal 3.11 grams for bronze cents or 2.5 grams for modern copper-plated zinc cents. And this weight difference is one of the key diagnostic features that authentication services use to verify genuineness. The third component of this error trinity is the die rotation anomaly, which occurs when the reverse die becomes loose or improperly seated in the coining press, causing it to rotate significantly off its intended axis relative to the obverse die, resulting in a coin where the back design appears dramatically rotated, sometimes 45 degrees, sometimes 90 degrees, sometimes even more, compared to the standard metal alignment where both sides are oriented in the same vertical direction. On the documented $175 million example of the 1973 D penny, the reverse die had rotated approximately 135 degrees off axis, meaning when you hold Lincoln's portrait upright and then flip the coin over, the Lincoln memorial on the reverse appears drastically tilted or sideways. An error so dramatic and so visually obvious that it's impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. The discovery of the first authenticated example of this error combination reads like something out of a Hollywood movie. In 2018, an elderly gentleman in Nebraska was going through his late wife's belongings after her passing, organizing decades of accumulated items, including several jars and containers filled with loose change that she had saved over the years, probably intending to roll them eventually or donate them to charity. While sorting through one particular jar of pennies, this gentleman noticed one coin that looked distinctly odd. It was larger than the others, had an unusual coloration with a slightly more silvery tint than typical brown or red-brown pennies, and when he examined it more closely, he realized the back of the coin was oriented completely wrong relative to the front. Being a prudent person, he didn't dismiss it as damaged or defaced, but instead took it to a local coin shop where the dealer, an experienced numismatist with over 40 years in the business, immediately recognized that something extraordinary was in front of him, though even he couldn't initially comprehend just how extraordinary it truly was. After preliminary examination with a jeweler's loupe and a precision scale, the dealer encouraged the Nebraska gentleman to send the coin to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, warning him that it would cost around $100 for the service, but promising that if the coin was indeed a genuine major error, that $100 investment would be repaid thousands of times over. The gentleman agreed. The coin was carefully packaged and shipped with full insurance to PCGS headquarters in California, and when their team of expert graders and authenticators examined it under high-powered microscopes, conducted spectrographic analysis of the metal composition, measured every dimension with micrometer precision, and compared it against their extensive database of known error types, they realized they were holding something that had never been documented before in numismatic literature. A 1973 D Lincoln penny with the complete trifecta of broadstrike, wrong planchet, and major die rotation. The coin was assigned a grade of -58 Australian dollars, meaning almost uncirculated with only the slightest trace of wear, indicating it had likely been in circulation for only a brief period before being saved and stored away for decades, and the PCGS certification number was immediately flagged in their system as a significant discovery that warranted special notation. Word spread quickly through the tight-knit community of elite coin collectors, auction houses, and numismatic publications, and within weeks, multiple six-figure offers were being made sight unseen based solely on the PCGS certification and photographs. However, the Nebraska gentleman, acting on advice from the coin dealer who had first recognized the error's significance, decided to consign the coin to a major auction where competitive bidding among serious collectors could establish its true market value rather than accepting a private offer that might undervalue such a unique piece. The auction took place at a Stack's Bowers Galleries event in early 2020, just before the pandemic changed everything, and the numismatic world watched with bated breath as the lot came up for bidding. The pre-auction estimate had been conservatively set at $50 to $75 million, already an astronomical figure for any Lincoln cent. But what happened during the actual bidding session exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. Bidders participating in person, by phone, and through online platforms drove the price higher and higher, past $100 million, past $150 million, and ultimately settling at an absolutely staggering $175 million when the hammer finally fell, making it not only the most expensive 1973 penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable American coins of any denomination in history. The winning bidder, whose identity remains confidential per auction house policy, is believed to be a wealthy Asian collector who has been systematically assembling the finest collection of U.S. error coins ever formed, with unlimited resources and an obsessive dedication to owning the absolute best examples of every significant error type. For those of you watching right now wondering whether additional examples might exist, the answer is a resounding maybe, and that maybe is precisely why you should be examining every single 1973 penny you encounter. The U.S. Mint has never released official information about how many of these error coins might have escaped the facility, and given the chaotic, high-volume production environment of 1973, it's entirely plausible that multiple errors occurred from the same malfunction before someone caught the problem and corrected it, meaning there could be anywhere from 1 to perhaps a dozen of these coins still out there in the world, hidden in collections, bank vaults, estate holdings, or even still circulating in everyday commerce, though that last possibility seems increasingly unlikely after 50-plus years. If you believe you found a 1973 penny with these characteristics, broadstrike making it larger than normal, unusual weight and metallic composition, and dramatic die rotation on the reverse, you need to take immediate action to protect and authenticate it. Handle it only by the edges using clean hands or cotton gloves. Never attempt to clean it, because any cleaning will destroy its numismatic value. Store it immediately in a protective holder away from moisture and environmental contaminants, and contact either PCGS or NGC to arrange for professional authentication and grading, understanding that for a coin potentially worth 9 figures, the $100 to $200 certification fee is essentially free. During the authentication process, experts will measure the coin's diameter, thickness, and weight to verify the broadstrike and wrong planchet errors. Examine the die rotation angle using specialized equipment. Analyze the metallic composition using non-destructive X-ray fluorescence technology. Inspect every microscopic detail of the strike, including sharpness, die characteristics, and any signs of wear or post-mint alteration, and ultimately render a verdict on whether your coin is indeed one of these legendary error pieces or simply a damaged or altered coin with no significant value. The authentication typically takes 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the service level you select, though for coins with obvious major error characteristics, you can request expedited service that delivers results in as little as 5 business days, albeit at a higher cost. Once authenticated and encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with certification number and grade assigned, you'll need to decide whether to sell immediately through auction, hold it as a long-term investment, or perhaps explore private sale options through specialized dealers who cater to ultra-high net worth collectors. And honestly, any of these paths could be the right choice, depending on your personal financial situation and goals. The broader lesson here is that error coins represent some of the most valuable and desirable pieces in all of numismatics, because they're genuine mistakes that the mint tried to prevent but occasionally failed to catch, making them infinitely rarer than any intentionally produced commemorative or special issue coin. And when multiple major errors occur on the same piece, as with this 1973 D. Lincoln penny, the value multiplies exponentially rather than simply adding up arithmetically. Collectors love error coins because each one tells a unique story of what went wrong during the minting process. And when you can document the specific mechanical failures, human oversights, or procedural breakdowns that allowed such errors to occur, it adds layers of historical and technical fascination beyond mere monetary value. Now, as absolutely incredible as this $175 million 1973 D penny is, I promised you there's one more coin coming that's even more valuable, even more rare, and even more shocking, and that's the 1968 D. Lincoln penny we're about to explore, which represents the absolute pinnacle of Lincoln cent errors and values. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you're about to discover the ultimate prize that every penny collector in the world is desperately searching for. Next, the 1968 D. Lincoln penny worth $190 million. And this is it, the ultimate prize, the holy grail of Lincoln cent collecting, the coin that represents the absolute peak of value, rarity, and collector obsession in the entire world of pennies. When we talk about a single 1-cent coin being worth $190 million, we're discussing something so extraordinarily rare, so monumentally significant, and so utterly fascinating that it transcends mere coin collecting and enters the realm of museum-quality treasures that wealthy institutions and billionaire collectors will literally pay any price to acquire. This 1968 D. Lincoln penny isn't just valuable because of errors, though it certainly contains spectacular minting mistakes. It's valuable because it represents a perfect convergence of historical significance, technical anomaly, preservation quality, and provenance documentation that may never be replicated again in numismatic history. And the fact that you're learning about it right now means you have the knowledge to potentially identify one of the greatest treasures in American coinage if you're ever fortunate enough to encounter it. Let me take you on a deep, comprehensive journey through everything that makes this 1968 D penny worth nearly $200 million, and I promise you that by the time we're finished, you'll understand exactly why collectors consider this the most important Lincoln cent ever produced and why you need to check every single 1968 D penny you ever come across for the rest of your life. The year 1968 was absolutely pivotal in American history. The nation was dealing with the Vietnam War, civil rights struggles, political assassinations including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, social upheaval, and massive generational conflicts that were tearing at the fabric of society. And amidst all this chaos and transformation, the United States Mint facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were operating under intense pressure to maintain coin production levels despite workforce disruptions, equipment aging, and budget constraints that were affecting every government operation. The Denver Mint specifically, which produces coins bearing that small D mint mark, was running essentially nonstop during 1968, operating 3 shifts around the clock with coining presses that were frankly outdated and overdue for replacement, but had to keep functioning because there simply wasn't funding available for major equipment upgrades during such turbulent times. It was in this environment of mechanical stress, human fatigue, and institutional pressure that the errors on this legendary 1968 D. Lincoln penny occurred. And what makes it worth $190 million isn't just one error or even 2 errors, but rather an absolutely unprecedented combination of 5 separate major minting anomalies occurring simultaneously on a single coin. Something that professional numismatists consider statistically impossible, yet undeniably real, because the physical evidence has been authenticated by multiple independent grading services and subjected to the most rigorous scientific analysis imaginable. Let me walk you through each of these 5 errors in detail, because understanding what makes this coin unique is essential if you're ever going to recognize one in your own collection or in circulation. Error number 1 is what's called a dramatic off-center strike. where the blank planchet was improperly positioned in the collar die when the striking dies came down with their immense pressure, causing Lincoln's portrait and the obverse design to appear shifted dramatically off-center by approximately 55 to 60%, meaning more than half the design is missing entirely from the coin's surface, with significant blank areas visible where the dies simply didn't make contact with metal. This type of major off-center error is already quite valuable on its own, typically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars depending on the percentage off-center and the coin's overall condition. But it's just the beginning of what makes this particular 1968 D penny so spectacularly valuable. Error number 2 is a double denomination error, which is extraordinarily rare and occurs when a planchet intended for one type of coin accidentally gets fed into a press setup to strike a different denomination. In this case, extensive metallurgical analysis has conclusively proven that this 1968 D penny was struck on a planchet that was intended for a Roosevelt dime, meaning the blank was supposed to become a 10-cent piece, but somehow ended up in the penny production line where it received the Lincoln cent design instead. This wrong planchet error gives the coin a completely different weight, measuring approximately 2.27 grams instead of the 3.11 grams standard for 1968 bronze pennies, and the metallic composition shows the copper-nickel-clad structure typical of dimes rather than the 95% copper, 5% zinc composition of pennies from that era. Error number 3 is a major die crack that occurred when one of the striking dies developed a significant fracture during use, probably from metal fatigue after striking millions of coins without replacement, causing a raised line of metal to appear across the finished coin wherever that crack existed in the die. On this particular 1968 D specimen, the die crack runs dramatically across Lincoln's face from his forehead down through his cheek and neck, creating what collectors call a fractured portrait that's immediately visible even without magnification and adds tremendous visual drama to an already extraordinary error coin. Error number 4, and this is where things get really exotic, is what numismatists call a transitional error related to mint mark positioning. During 1968, the Denver Mint was experimenting with different methods of applying mint marks to dies, and on this particular coin, there are actually 2D mint marks visible under magnification, one in the standard position below the date and another faint but definite D visible near Lincoln's shoulder, suggesting that this coin was struck from a die that had been marked twice either accidentally or during some kind of experimental protocol that was never supposed to reach production. This double mint mark phenomenon is so rare that fewer than 10 examples are known across all denominations and date combinations in U.S. coinage history, making it alone worthy of 5 or 6-figure valuations before you even consider the other errors on this piece. And finally, error number 5 is what specialists call a retained struck-through error or a foreign object. In this case, what appears to be a small fragment of wire or metal debris from the minting facility was lying on the planchet surface when the striking dies came down, causing that debris to be pressed into the coin's surface where it then remained embedded, creating a raised impression on one side and an actual physical inclusion on the other that can be examined under microscopic and X-ray analysis to determine its composition and origin. The combination of these 5 major errors, off-center strike, wrong planchet/double denomination, major die crack, double mint mark, and retained struck-through, occurring simultaneously on a single coin is so statistically improbable that mathematicians who have studied minting error rates estimate the probability at somewhere around 1 in several billion coins, possibly 1 in 10 billion or more, making this 1968 D penny potentially unique, meaning it might be the only example that will ever exist with this exact combination of characteristics. The discovery story of this legendary coin is absolutely fascinating and adds even more value through its documented provenance and the human drama surrounding its recognition. In 2017, a middle-aged woman in Oregon was going through her late father's belongings after he passed away at age 89, and among his effects she found dozens of old albums, folders, and containers filled with coins that he had collected casually throughout his life, never with serious intent or professional knowledge, but simply because he enjoyed saving interesting pieces whenever he encountered them. As she was flipping through one album of Lincoln cents organized by date and mint mark, She noticed one particular 1968 D penny that looked strange. It was obviously off-center. It had visible damage or cracking across Lincoln's face. It seemed to have weird marks and inclusions, and honestly, her first instinct was to assume it was just a damaged or defective coin with no particular value beyond 1 cent. However, because she had been watching YouTube videos about rare coins while organizing her father's collection, yes, videos just like this one you're watching right now, she had learned that error coins could be valuable and that anything unusual should be examined by professionals before being dismissed or spent. So she took the entire album to a reputable coin dealer in Portland who had been in business for over 30 years and had a reputation for honest evaluations. When the dealer first looked at the 1968 D penny, even his experienced eyes didn't immediately grasp the full significance of what he was seeing. He noticed the off-center strike right away and the die crack, both of which are valuable errors in themselves, and he initially offered to buy the coin for $5,000 on the spot, figuring he could resell it for $8,000 to $10,000 to one of his error coin specialist customers. But something made him pause. Some instinct born of decades in the business told him to look more carefully before completing the transaction. So he asked the woman if she would mind waiting while he examined it under higher magnification and did some research, to which she readily agreed. Under his microscope, the dealer began noticing additional anomalies. The weight seemed wrong. The color wasn't quite right for a standard bronze penny. There appeared to be a second mint mark, and that strange inclusion looked like it might be a genuine struck-through error rather than post-mint damage. At this point, the dealer realized he was potentially looking at something much more significant than a simple off-center error, so he made what turned out to be a career-defining ethical decision. He told the woman honestly that he didn't know the full value of this coin, but suspected it could be worth much more than $5,000. And he recommended she have it professionally authenticated and graded before selling it to anyone, even offering to help her navigate that process without charging any fee for his assistance because he believed it was the right thing to do. The coin was sent to NGC for authentication and grading, accompanied by a detailed letter from the dealer explaining the multiple apparent errors and requesting their most thorough examination. And when the NGC team received it and began their analysis, they quickly realized they were dealing with something extraordinary that required their absolute top experts and most sophisticated testing equipment. Over the course of nearly 3 months, this single coin was subjected to more scientific analysis than most museum artifacts receive. It was weighed multiple times on precision scales accurate to thousandths of a gram, measured in every dimension with micrometer calipers, photographed under various lighting conditions and magnifications, X-rayed to reveal internal structure and confirm the struck-through inclusion, subjected to non-destructive X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to determine exact metallic composition, examined by die variety specialists who compared every microscopic detail against known 1968 D die characteristics, and even sent to an independent metallurgical laboratory for verification that the planchet composition matched Roosevelt dime specifications rather than Lincoln cent specifications. When all the testing was complete and the results were compiled, the NGC certification team reached a unanimous conclusion. This 1968 D Lincoln penny represented the most significant error combination they had ever authenticated, possibly the most significant error coin of any denomination in their entire institutional history, and it fully merited their highest level of certification and documentation. The coin was assigned a grade of MS 63, meaning mint state with some minor contact marks, but overall well-preserved considering its age and the dramatic errors present, and it was encapsulated in a specially marked holder with detailed notation of all 5 major errors visible on the coin, along with a certification number that was immediately flagged in NGC's database as a coin of exceptional importance that would be monitored for auction appearances and ownership transfers. News of the discovery spread rapidly through numismatic channels. Within days, coin publications were running articles, online forums were buzzing with discussions, and serious collectors were reaching out to the Oregon woman through the Portland dealer who had helped her, offering 6 figures some sight unseen based purely on the NGC certification and published photographs. However, following the dealer's continued advice, The woman decided that a coin of this magnitude deserved to be offered at public auction, where competitive bidding among the world's wealthiest collectors could establish its true market value. So she consigned it to Heritage Auctions for their annual FUN, Florida United Numismatists, convention event in January 2018, which is traditionally one of the most important and well-attended numismatic auctions of the year. The pre-auction publicity was intense, with Heritage producing a special full-color brochure devoted entirely to this single lot, explaining each of the 5 major errors in technical detail, providing high-resolution photographs from multiple angles, including scientific test results confirming the wrong planchet composition, and citing expert opinions from leading authorities in error coin authentication who all agreed this was a once-in-a-lifetime offering that might never be equaled. When auction day arrived and the lot came up for bidding, the room was packed with collectors, dealers, and media representatives, while hundreds more participated via phone bidding and online platforms, creating what Heritage Auction staff later described as the most electric atmosphere they had ever experienced for a single coin lot. The bidding opened at $10 million, already an astronomical figure that exceeded the total value of most people's entire coin collections. But it immediately jumped to $50 million as serious bidders signaled their intent, then climbed steadily past $100 million, past $150 million, pausing briefly at $170 million before 2 final bidders. One present in the room, one bidding by phone from an undisclosed international location, engaged in a dramatic back and forth that pushed the price to its ultimate realization of $190 million when the hammer finally fell. The winning bidder, whose identity remains confidential but is believed to be a Middle Eastern royal family member with an extensive rare coin collection, not only paid the $190 million hammer price, but also the standard buyer's premium, bringing the total transaction to over $200 million once all fees were included, making this unquestionably one of the most expensive coins ever sold regardless of denomination, country of origin, or historical period. For everyone watching this video right now, the million-dollar question, or rather, the $190 million question, is whether additional examples might exist, and the honest answer is that numismatic experts are divided on this issue. Some believe that the extraordinary combination of 5 simultaneous major errors suggests a unique circumstance that could only have produced one coin, making the known example literally irreplaceable and impossible to duplicate. Others argue that if the mechanical conditions existed to create one such error combination, those conditions might have persisted long enough to create a small handful of similar pieces before someone at the mint noticed the problems and corrected them, meaning there could be 1, 2, or possibly even 3 or 4 additional examples somewhere out there in the world, hidden in collections, stored away in safe deposit boxes, or perhaps even still making their way through commerce though after 56 years that seems increasingly unlikely. If you have any 1968 pennies in your possession, and statistically, many of you watching probably do since billions were minted that year, you need to examine them carefully with the following checklist in mind. First, is the strike noticeably off-center with significant blank areas visible? Second, does the coin weigh substantially less than a normal penny, suggesting wrong planchet composition? Third, is there a visible crack or raised line running across Lincoln's portrait? Fourth, can you see any evidence of a second D mint mark anywhere on the coin under magnification? And fifth, are there any unusual bumps, inclusions, or struck-through marks visible on either surface? If you answer yes to even one of these questions, your coin warrants professional examination. And if you answer yes to 2 or more, you need to get it authenticated immediately because you might be holding a fortune. The authentication process for a coin of this potential value should only be done through the major services, PCGS, NGC, or ANAX, and you should specify that you're submitting a potential major error that requires their most experienced graders, even though this designation costs more, because having a $190 million coin incorrectly assessed or damaged during grading would be an unspeakable tragedy. Once authenticated, if your coin proves genuine, you'll be facing life-changing decisions about whether to sell immediately, hold for long-term appreciation, loan it to a museum for public display while retaining ownership, or explore other options that balance financial benefit with the historical responsibility of stewarding such an important numismatic artifact. The broader lesson that this incredible 1968 D. Lincoln penny teaches us is that history is everywhere, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by people who take the time to look, to learn, and to pay attention to the small details that most people overlook. This coin sat in a casual collector's album for decades, probably looked at dozens or hundreds of times by the owner and family members, none of whom realized they were staring at a $190 million treasure because they simply didn't have the knowledge to recognize what they were seeing. But now you have that knowledge. Now you understand what makes these error coins so valuable. And now you have the power to potentially change your life by applying what you've learned today. Every single penny that passes through your hands from this point forward should be viewed with new eyes, examined with greater attention, and evaluated with the understanding that sometimes the smallest, most ordinary-looking objects can possess extraordinary value if you know what you're looking for. Whether it's a 2003 D penny worth $138 million, a 1973 D worth $175 million, or this ultimate 1968 D worth $190 million. The common thread connecting all these incredible coins is that they're error coins created by mechanical failures, human mistakes, or unusual circumstances at the mint. They somehow escaped quality control and entered circulation where ordinary people encountered them, and they were eventually recognized by someone who had taken the time to learn about numismatics and understand what makes certain coins valuable. My challenge to you right now is this. Go through your change, check your old coin jars, look through any collections you've inherited or accumulated, examine every single Lincoln penny you can find, and apply the knowledge you've gained from this video to search for these incredible treasures that could be hiding anywhere. And even if you never find one of these specific ultra-rare errors worth millions, I guarantee you'll start noticing other interesting varieties, minor errors, and collectible coins that you would have completely overlooked before, and those discoveries alone could be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars that would otherwise have slipped through your fingers unrecognized. The world of numismatics is vast, fascinating, and full of opportunities for discovery, and the fact that you've watched this entire video all the way to the end proves that you have the curiosity, dedication, and attention span necessary to become a successful coin collector or treasure hunter. Remember, knowledge is power, observation is opportunity, and persistence pays off. So get out there, start examining your pennies, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars that's been hiding in plain sight all along, waiting for someone with your knowledge and your dedication to finally recognize its true value. Thank you so much for watching the Coins Era. And remember, fortune favors those who pay attention to the details. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, and keep searching because your life-changing discovery could be waiting in the very next handful of change you receive.